Hello everyone, back in today's first video, doing JMA Friday for today's first video. As always on a Friday, we're having a detailed look at the weather for the month ahead with Japanese and CFS V2 models. This takes us into the middle part of February. So going in towards the closing stages, can you believe, of winter of 2017-18. Been a funny old winter so far with a lot of chopping and changing. Will that continue for the month ahead? You'll find out very shortly. There's a little bit of wintry potential coming up this weekend. So we've got heavy snow showers in the north today, and then over the weekend there could be more snow in places before eventually it turns much milder at the end of the weekend and into the start of next week. So I think we'll do snow watch this evening. That'll be around 7 o'clock. We'll have a snow watch to see what the wintry potential is for this weekend across the British Isles. But we'll begin today's videos by having doing JMA Friday, so that's where we're starting. We're going to have a look at the Japanese model first of all, then we'll have a look at CFS V2, and we'll compare the two. So, starting off with the 500 millibar height anomalies, broken down into weekly periods from the North Pole view down. So this is the North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere just here, and the mid-latitudes of the Northern Hemisphere around there. British Isles is just there. So 500 millibars, 8,000 feet, is an area in the atmosphere, high pressure, low pressure, being moved around by the jet stream, and that essentially is what the weather is, a movement of air masses via the jet stream. So on these charts, red, orange, yellow, the brighter colours extrapolate to high pressure, and blues extrapolate to low pressure. So for the coming week, this is the 500 millibar height anomaly for the 19th to 26th of January. We find that we have got an area of above average heights here to our north, so quite a strong blocking signal actually up there, but we've got below average heights down to the southwest, and then in between we've got various troughs of low pressure. So essentially we're doing something a bit like that with the flow and with the jet stream. It does imply that there's probably somewhat milder air coming up in the week ahead, and I think that does tie in with the shorter range weather models. It will be turning milder through the course of next week as the winds become rather more Atlantic based. So we should see an increase in the temperature through the course of next week. Then we go through to week 2, and this is taking us from the 26th of January to the 2nd of February. Now, this is quite an interesting one because it's developing a large area of above average heights over and to the northeast of the British Isles. So what that would do, very much blocking off the Atlantic with below average heights going down here, and what that would do is that it would turn the wind into an easterly direction here at the end of January and into the start of February. So becoming much more anticyclonic and not drier through the final days of January, start of February, but also becoming much colder if that's right as well. We would bring in some perhaps quite bitterly cold air from central and eastern parts of Europe. I have to say, in the shorter range models, and that's really talking about the extended GFS moment, there's not much sign of that happening. So I have to be a little bit careful about what the JMA is doing there, but I can only show you what the model is presenting, and that this week, anyway, JMA this week is suggesting that the end of January, start of February could become a lot colder. And then this continues into weeks 3 and 4 as well, because we keep that area of high pressure or above average heights over and to the north of the British Isles, below average heights going down here. We're placed on the cold side of the jet stream, the jet's going down there, and we could well be bringing in some quite cold air again from the east there as we go through into weeks 3 and 4. That's from the 2nd to the 16th of February. So if that's right, it does imply that the first half of February could be really quite cold indeed. Very dry, but also very cold, and obviously there will be at times some snow potential in with that as well, and it's just snow flurries being brought in on those easy winds. Quite a surprising update from the JMA today. So let's have a look at the temperature and precipitation anomalies that go with those heights. First of all, we'll come back to week 1. British Isles on this view is in the top right hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it. So a reminder of the week 1 500 millibar height anomaly from the 19th 26th of January. Above average heights around Spain and Portugal, below average heights are in the Atlantic. There is a blocking signal, but for this week we're probably actually bringing up the wind from a west or southwesterly direction. The precipitation anomaly looks a bit above average, so it is quite an unsettled week coming up with bands of rain moving across the Atlantic. Temperature anomalies, perhaps a little bit surprisingly, are a little bit cooler than average. It's not a desperately cold week, but it is coming out a bit colder than average, which may be given the height anomaly is a little bit surprising. But remember, we're starting off quite cold right now, and through the rest of the weekend will be cold, and then next week it'll start to turn rather milder actually through the course of next week. Then we go through to week 2, which is the 26th of January through to the 2nd of February. That large area of above average heights is over, and to the northeast of British. You can't really see the Scandinavia all that well on this view, but we know we've got the big ridge up there, which it looked like it should be bringing in the wind from an easterly direction. You can expect this to be a drier week because we're blocking off the Atlantic. That's what the model is going for. Below average precipitation from the 26th of January to the 2nd of February. And temperature anomalies are looking like this. So for Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's not far from average. For England and Wales, it's colder than average. That's because we're bringing in the air in from off the continent. Notice how cold it is across many parts of Europe. Really, much of the continent is being plunged into the freezer there. So that's confirmation that this ridge is pulling the air in from Russia, and it's bringing a lot of cold air across the continent of Europe. And we're on the periphery of that, of course, but certainly for England and Wales, it implies that those easterly winds will be bringing the cold air in from off the continental landmass. So drier, but much colder to end January and start February, if this update of JMA Friday is right. As I say, caveat is, it is quite a surprising update. There's not much evidence of this at the moment within the extended GFS, and not really, although it doesn't quite get to that time frame, not really a lot of evidence from the ECM WF either. Weeks 3 and 4, the 2nd to the 16th of February, looks like that. And essentially, we're maintaining that blocking feature, and it's generally centred over or to the north of the country, which again you will think is bringing in the air in from off the continent, bringing in these easterly winds. So you'd expect this to still be a cold 2-weekly period. Precipitation anomalies are below average again, so it does turn much drier as we move into February. Proper anticyclonic signal here to be turning things drier through the first half of February. Temperature anomalies are kind of easy. Now, it does imply that much of Europe is still colder than average. For the British Isles, we're close to average. Always remember with this, it's a 2-weekly anomaly. So you might have a situation where week 3 still has those easterly winds and is still potentially really quite cold. And then week 4 perhaps reverts more towards a westerly or something like that. But based on the height anomaly, I think this does imply a cold and dry sort of first half of February. Potentially very cold and dry, given the extent of that blocking feature. So that's the JMA, this is CFS V2, and again, these are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period will take us from the 18th to the 24th of January. The coming week finds out got below average heights over the UK and also to our east as well. Above average heights are down to the south. Also, again, quite a strong blocking signal to our north. It leaves us doing something like that with the flow with jet stream. So fairly unsettled week coming up. Probably starting quite cold where we are right now, and then turning a bit milder as we get through into next week. Now, this is a big change for week 2 on what the JMA is showing. So this is the 25th of January through to the 31st, the final day of the month. And instead of having the high pressure centering itself over Scandinavia and to the northeast of British Isles, the above average heights are centering across Central and Southern Europe with low pressure out there. It means that we're doing something like that, but flowing with jet stream. So this is a much milder scenario here for the final week of January. We'll be bringing the air up from the south and from the southwest as well, and we're on the mild side of the ridge. So this is, and it's more in line with what the extended GFS and ECMWF is showing here for the final week of January as well. So I think we do have to be very careful about what the JMA is showing, which is potentially really very cold for much of Europe as we go into the early part of February. The CFS V2 doesn't really want anything to do with that at all. And that continues into week 3 as well. This is the 1st through to the 7th of February, when we have above average heights to our south, below average heights up to the northwest, and so this leaves us with a flat west-southwesterly flow. That's more unsettled, and it's also still really quite mild. And then week 4 rounds it all off. It's the 8th to the 14th of February, when again we have above average heights to our southeast, below average heights up to the northwest, and so we remain bringing in the wind from a west or southwest direction. So again, unsettled and very mild. So we've got a real conflict here between these two models. Where they start off the week ahead quite similar, very soon into these updates, just into the last week of January, they are deviating big time as opposed to what they want to happen with the CFS, very mild and wet and windy into early February. The JMA much drier, but also a lot colder as well. So if you have a look at the temperature anomalies, we find that week 1 with CFS V2 is coming out colder than average. So again, agreement there that the coming week is just about colder than average week. Bear in mind it will be turning milder from around Monday onwards. The 25th to the 31st of January, week 2, is milder than average. That's when the JMA is plunging most parts of Europe really into the freezer. Look how much milder it is for most of Europe in week 2 compared to the JMA. That's a huge difference as early as the second week between these two models. Week 3 is coming out milder than average with CFS V2 as well. And then week 4 rounds it all off. That's coming out milder than average too. So very mild first half of February with CFS V2 versus potentially really quite a cold, maybe even very cold, first half of February with the JMA. And then we have the precipitation anomalies. So the week ahead is coming out a bit wetter than average, generally with the CFS. Then week 2 is going very wet. So this is when the JMA is going very dry, going dry and cold. The CFS is going very mild, but also very wet here for the final week of January. We're going to February, so this is the 3rd to the 7th of February, and again, we're coming out generally with above average rainfall there. And then week 4, again, that's coming out with above average precipitation as well. Really wet if this is right through the first half of February, but at the same time the JMA is implying that it should be very dry, and the split continues with pressure patterns. So the JMA wants to produce that big blocking feature to over and to the northeast British Isles, which consequently gives us cold and dry weather through the first half of February, whereas the JMA is, CFS I should say, is suggesting much more low pressure dominated weather patterns, westerly, southwesterly winds, much wetter, but also much warmer as well through the early part of February. So this is a huge split between these two models, and we can't, excuse me, we can't say which way this is going to go. So we're going to concentrate on the short range models, because I don't think these long range ones have been performing terribly well all winter. There's been something about this winter that has produced a lot of confusion, particularly with the longer range stuff. But also, to be fair, with shorter range ones as well, they've not been performing particularly well beyond sort of 5 or 6 days either this winter. So I think I've got to wait and see where this is going to go. At the moment, I wouldn't take the JMA all that seriously, but I, excuse me, again, I think we are gradually shifting with the shorter range models towards a more anticyclonic type outlook as we get into the start of February. And where that anticyclone sits, that's probably going to be the critical factor onto whether it turns cold or whether it's just generally anticyclonic and not overly cold. So we may finish up with a blend between the two in the end, actually, with high pressure dominating, but not in a desperately cold position. But we shall wait and see how things evolve. And, of course, next week's JMA Friday could look very different indeed. Right, we're going to do Slow Watch this evening, and tomorrow, of course, we've got weekend broadcast. CFS 6 month look ahead will return, and then lots of updates coming up on Sunday as well. So keep checking back for all of the updates. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.